Welcome everyone back to another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. I was my mother's caregiver after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Unfortunately, she passed on 1/1/2020, but we started Together for Sharon.com in her memory. But through these types of interviews, I believe her memory lives on. However, this individual is who inspire me, and I can't say it enough because it's just incredible what our guest today, Beth, has done, does, and is going to bring in the future. So I just want to welcome you, Beth, and on behalf of the Indiana Parkinson's Foundation. It's amazing to have you here. We had the honor to have another amazing guest from your organization, but you all have such different journeys that it was just an honor to have you with us to share yours today.
Yeah, thank you so much, George, for having me. I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you for all you do.
No, I appreciate it, and you motivate me to keep, so I always say there's some tough days, even today. I won't get into
Yeah,
it, but I kind of throw it all aside and get right back to Parkinson's awareness because there's so many people still battling. I felt alone as a caregiver. My mother felt alone
yeah.
as someone battling, and I just realized a week ago, I've been saying this a lot, but come to think of it, my mother never spoke to someone with Parkinson's, and I never spoke to
Wow.
someone with Parkinson's or a caregiver of someone during our journey because we didn't
Yeah,
have time or I just didn't even know anyone existed. And that's why I think
yeah.
these conversations like today so critical because if we could even just reach one person who feels alone,
Oh, absolutely.
maybe it
Yeah.
could change the world. So maybe you could tell us, a little bit about your background and what got you into the world of Parkinson's awareness.
Yeah. So much of what you just said really hits close to home for me as well. Caregiving, unfortunately, is a very isolating journey. And kind of what you alluded to is you're so overwhelmed in the moment that it's really difficult to even reach out and ask for help or even to just talk. And so I'm so grateful for you and what you're doing in your mom's honor. And I have no doubt that she is smiling down on you with so much pride. So thank you so much for having me. But yes, my name is Beth, and I have a mom who has Lewy body dementia. And she was diagnosed with dementia when I was only 17 years old. And the problem is that her and I had just moved to northern Indiana, just her and I. And about 6 months into our move, she was diagnosed with dementia. And so it was just her and I, and we started this journey, and I was only 17 years old and had no idea that I would be here 17 years later, um, and still on this journey with her. So it's been a long, long road, with a lot of ups and downs. But about 10 years after she was diagnosed with dementia, they correctly diagnosed her with Lewy body dementia. And so Lewy body dementia is, even though it's the second most common type of dementia, is often overlooked. And Lewy body dementia is actually a form of Parkinsonism, which I think not a lot of people know. So that's how I kind of entered the world of Parkinson's disease. Um, Once, my mom kind of last summer really started to go downhill, and I reached out to a friend at church looking for someone to talk to about grief. And he connected me with a lovely lady named Kim, who also went to our church. And she's the executive director at the Indiana Parkinson Foundation.
Mhm.
And her and I just kind of hit it off right away. And I am so excited and happy to be a part of the foundation now, so that we can help reach as many people as possible, caregivers and those living with the disease, and help connect them with resources to best support them.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And it's amazing the journey you've been through. Even I imagine 17 years old is not, I was about I'm not good at math, but probably in the late 30s or 40 almost. And it was already, had a family and thing, but starting off, I imagined even could be tough too. And we send
Yeah.
our love to you, your mother, and the whole family because we just started on togetherforsharon.com, which you probably are aware,
Yep.
covering other areas like ALS, dementia, Lewy body, Alzheimer's, because I really wish we could find a cure for everything. Unfortunately,
I agree.
Parkinson hit us hardest, so that's where my main focus. But
Yeah.
we,
Yeah.
even this month is Suicide Prevention Month, and we all love Robin Williams, who had, I believe,
Yes.
Lewy body, and his wife speaks out about it, and I think we need more people like that to also join in the fight. And I do think we're a family. The community in Indiana that I was able to speak with is beautiful. I actually liked a lot of the, not to get too into it, but the religious tones and background because, and again, I don't want to get to my background, but before caregiving, I worked in law enforcement and as an attorney. But my PhD is actually in aiding African American mothers, but all women and families who lost their loved one due to crime,
Wow.
specifically
Wow.
homicide. So the only way they were able to reintegrate themselves back into society is through church or spiritual
Oh, that's
and
beautiful.
also community support. But that was one aspect that I spent a little time extra with the Indiana Parkinson's Foundation because I saw your mission and we'll share it actually. Let's do that right now.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, what a wonderful gift, that you used your education to help those in need in that way.
Yeah, I know I appreciate it, but you also teach me so much and everyone else out there. Like I said, I'm a continual learner. I always joke and say I, been in school my whole life and now I'm teaching, so I'll probably be in school for my whole life, but you keep learning, every day.
Never stop
Yeah.
learning. Never stop learning.
Everyone, please support Beth and the entire Indiana Parkinson's Foundation by going to indianaparkinson.org. I know you're having some trouble for some reason with Facebook right now, which
We are.
I
We
don't know.
are.
I tried to
Yeah.
tag you all and it wouldn't let me, but we'll hope. I
We are in
was like,
Facebook jail and
I
we
thought
cannot figure
you,
out
I
why.
thought they blocked me. I'm like, what did I do? We just had a great
I
luck
don't
right
even
now.
know what happened. I know,
Uh,
darn.
here's the history of the mission and my favorite part, the statement of faith, because it kind of sets this foundation separate than a lot of don't kind of get into that world of obviously none of us want to with politics, but at least with religion, but faith is very important. And I appreciate you all doing that. So please go there. I don't know if you had a little area you wanted to touch on. We already went in depth on the foundation, but
Right.
I don't know if there's some specific. I know you're amazing because you offer exercise programs, support groups, educational resources, and so many events,
That's
which
right.
I think I'm trying to. We started a new show. It's called Q&A with Sharon Son Virtual on the Road. So I'm hoping
Okay.
if I could zoom into one of your events for 10 minutes. We'll
Oh,
interview
that would be
people.
amazing. Yeah, we would
And
love that.
I'd love to interview some people, but show the world your real events because these talks are great. They get to see you, we get to talk, but to be at an event, obviously I can't get to from Florida due to health issues.
Right, right.
It's
Thank
beautiful.
goodness for Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also,
the only thing that I would like to touch on with the website and IPF as a whole is just recently we launched a new YouTube channel, actually two YouTube channels. One of which is kind of our homepage, and it's just the Indiana Parkinson Foundation on YouTube. And that will have monthly education interviews with people in the medical profession, um, caregivers such as ourselves, and others that are involved with the care of Parkinson's disease, as well as its related diseases such as Lewy body dementia. So that's the Indiana Parkinson Foundation on YouTube. The second YouTube channel we have is The Climb on YouTube. The Climb is the name of our exercise program through the Indiana Parkinson Foundation. But what's really exciting is that
welcome back, everyone. We don't have commercials, but that will count that. We had a little break. Unfortunately, we lost the connection, but let's get right back into it and take it away, Beth.
yeah, so I'm so sorry. Yes, as I was saying, so the Indiana Parkinson Foundation created an exercise program called The Climb. And The Climb is was created by one of Addie's, the founder's daughters, college dorm roommates. And it specifically focuses on those living with Parkinson's. And now the great news is that anyone can access our exercise videos on YouTube for free. So we're hoping to reach, everyone, not just people living in Indiana anymore, but nationwide can access IPF's The Climb exercise videos on YouTube. So we're really excited about that.
No, that's amazing. I actually think I shared one video on YouTube. So if you also send me it, I'll add that to the show and just showing
Absolutely.
some of the, I know I follow We want to get this to 1 million, and that's my goal. And that's what
Yes.
we started it's called to get Parkinson's Connections. It's a YouTube free channel. So I take all different people, advocates, and completely free put your page. And I don't want any likes for mine. I just want everyone to go to everyone else's and just join and subscribe. So hopefully someday
I love that.
everyone will have 1 million, likes. And this one I love here. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
oh, let's see. Oh, I'm following Beth's life too. Anyway.
That's me.
So please follow the Indiana Parkinson Foundation. You need to add a YouTube here on the bottom eventually.
Yes.
And then
We actually are
remove
under
Facebook.
construction. Our
Oh,
website is a little under construction.
I love it. And also on X, every week it's something else, Twitter or X, but you can also, I'm following, please follow too. It only takes a moment. And most important, thank you for the interview you did with me a year ago. It's always shocking
Absolutely.
how quickly time flies. Before you know, we'll be in like 2026, but
I
this is
know.
beautiful photo of you and your mother and everyone. If
Thank
you
you.
go to togetherforsharon.com, click interviews, you'll be able to see a lot more in depth that we can't get to today with our amazing guest, Beth, and also how to reach out to her and so many more in more detail. And that's just so important, not just to
Yeah.
follow her, but also to share. So I
Yeah.
wanted to shift to a few more areas. What is the hardest part about, thinking back? I know even talking now, I'm still grieving, even though it's been almost 5 years. My mother's birthday is September 28th, so it's going to be
Oh,
a tough day. But what are some of the things you miss
yeah.
most about your mother? Mine is Sundays, the whole family would join together. We could never agree on what to order food. We would have like literal wars, like world wars about who won what
Oh, over, yeah, over
food.
which carry out to get.
Yeah, so now I miss
Oh,
that. But what about
you
you?
miss that. I
Yeah.
know. This it's honestly kind of along the same lines. It's really the little things. If I could recreate a day with her, it would be to just sit on the couch and have a relaxing, mundane conversation just about anything. I think because she was diagnosed when I was so young, I never really got an opportunity to get to know her as an adult because I think as we all age, we get to know our parents in a whole different way. She wasn't just the one to kiss my boo-boos. She was a whole person on the inside, and I never really got to know her. And since it's been 17 years since she was diagnosed, and I was so young when she was diagnosed, I'm starting to forget her. And so I think that is the hardest part for me right now is that I really just miss what I never had. A lot of my friends, my girlfriends have, moms that are very active in their lives and in their children's lives. Um, and so sometimes, sometimes it's a little hard to see. There's still kind of that bitterness there, which I know is part of the grief journey. But I would say that's one of the hardest parts about grief, especially when it comes to dementia. Even though my mom is still alive, she's not there, and that is something I kind of wanted to touch on is a lot of time caregivers will hear your loved one is still there, she's still the same person, but in all honesty I think that that's a very dangerous expectation to set for caregivers because then we feel guilt when we don't feel that connection anymore. And so, in order to grieve someone before they even leave, we have to be able to start to let go. And so, if we're told that we really should be hanging on to the person that they used to be, we're unable to move forward. So, that's one thing that I always tell my caregivers is that with dementia, it's okay to acknowledge that your loved one is not the same person that they used to be. And it's so important. And I honestly think that's healthy so that the caregiver can start that grieving process instead of being stuck. So I would say that's the hardest part right now is acknowledging that even though my mom is still physically with us, I lost her a long time ago.
Yeah, sorry to hear that. And today we'll dedicate to your mom. We'll make sure she lives on, even though she's still with us forever. But
Yes.
a lot of things you say bring me back too, because I actually, as you might know, published the first book on my mother's journey, but I kept a journal the last year, literally time
Oh,
stamped and the date of what it was like to be a caregiver for someone struggling with the hallucination, delusion. I think she had late onset dementia because the night that changed our lives forever. When I became her caregiver, she went for a special trial, and I think they changed her medication too drastically. So that night, I got a call to rush over to her home at 4 a.m. She was moving her furniture out of her
I
home.
remember reading that.
She
Yeah.
said there were Nazis in her home, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Rushed to the hospital. They said we saved her life, but that's when the decline of 4 years
Yeah.
occurred. She went
Yeah.
from walking several miles a week to 2 years of cane, a year the walker, and then the wheelchair and bedbound for 7 days, and wasn't even with us. But I think back and it's just hard because it's not, the same person, even though
Yeah.
they're there. And the delusions and hallucinations is something that needs to be talked about more. Ryan Reynolds just
Yes.
came out a few weeks ago for the first time. I think any celebrity discussed hallucinations and delusions with Parkinson's and his father. But that wasn't even the worst of the story. I brought her to the hospital. I went home and I never went to her room because she's a female and want to be private and respectful.
Sure.
I went in to get some of her clothes, and in the room, it was like the movie A Beautiful Mind. There were post-it notes throughout the room, and on the notes were animals and people who weren't actually there anymore. And she wasn't sure at sometimes if they were alive. So she would sometimes it was cute because she giggled that her mother's there, but obviously she wasn't. But then sometimes it got worse. We had to remove a phone. She called the police because she thought the caretakers that we hired were harming her, which I had to put
Yeah.
video cameras to make sure that they
The
weren't.
paranoia is,
Mhm.
yeah,
So just so
really
many
hard.
more topics in dementia, Lewy body and Parkinson's that we haven't
Yeah.
even kind of delved into yet because
Absolutely not, because people
stuff.
aren't talking about it.
And I
Yeah.
try, we have a blog with a young lady who actually lost her husband due to Alzheimer's. The same day I lost my mother due to Parkinson's. It's called Tackling Tough Topics, where we talk about everything from
Yeah.
pets of dignity to being alone on the holidays to medical marijuana licenses and things. But I think that your situation and mine need to have more light. And I don't want to say bad
Yes.
things about organizations, but I do feel as a child who lost a loved one that there's no category for me. And that's why I'm honored to have the platform together for Sharon because we can do anything, we could talk about anything, and no one's going to yell at me. And if they do, I won't. But it's
Yeah.
like, so another story for another time. But there are some things that have come up. And, we have a beginning and middle of life, but no one wants to talk about the end of life. And that's why I think sometimes I don't get asked to speak, which is fine because I have enough. I'm already losing my voice from talking enough. But you'd be surprised.
Oh,
We do a lot of the events for different organizations, and they have people up there. No one ever asked me, and I think it's because they don't want to, break the mold. They don't want to talk about the tougher topics. And we were told by 15
oh yeah.
medical professionals, you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it. My mother had no other medical issues ever, so
Oh,
it could have been from the medicines and something like that, but in reality, if it wasn't for Parkinson's, if we had a cure, she'd still be here. So
she'd still be here with
that's why
us.
we
Yeah.
keep fighting and we keep working together. Because again, I think we're a family in this fight for a cure.
That's right. Absolutely. And I think that something along the lines of fighting for a cure, something that I also tell our caregivers is the best thing you can do is be proactive as well. And so with the hallucinations, my mom really struggled with hallucinations to the point when she lived with us, they were becoming constant. So when you were talking about that, it really also hit close to home. I have so many stories that we do not even have time for today, but one of which was, she lived with us when our first was born, up until the time he was 18 months old. And so we had a baby gate at the bottom of the stairs. And I was nursing my son in his nursery, and the door was open. And from there, I could kind of see the hallway and into the stairs. Well, all of a sudden, my mom got so panicked that she jumped down our flight of stairs, flipping over our baby gate. And my husband was down there, so he went to her and helped her. But come to find out, she thought that there were clowns outside trying to kidnap my sister and I.
Mhm.
And so it was terrifying to her. If you can imagine living in that world and thinking that clowns were trying to kidnap your children, how terrifying that must have been for her. And I remember and this was just constant. Her hallucinations were so constant because she was misdiagnosed for so long. They were not treating her with the right medication. And we would try and beg the doctors, someone to just keep her for a week so that they could see, because we kept saying, this is not Alzheimer's. This is not vascular dementia. This is something very different. There is something very different going on. And until there was kind of similar to yours, an incident where we had to call an ambulance. She ended up falling out of bed and hitting her eye on a picture frame. And she went to the ER, and it was that night that I told the doctor she was not safe at home anymore and she could not come home. And so that ended up being a blessing in disguise, because they admitted her into a geriatric psych unit for a month. And that's when they finally were able to diagnose her with Lewy body dementia.
And so hearing every time you talk, I think of more stories and things that we could
I
share.
know we
And
could
it's,
probably talk all day long.
but then no one will want to listen to us. We may have a part two in the future for sure. One last area which is very important to you and me, and then I want to shift a little bit, not more fun, but just keep you smiling a little more for, because that's important. But what do you wish people would know more about dementia and Lewy body? Because again, I focus, actually, I'm a big advocate for dementia because I do feel I'm not again a medical doctor, but my mother must have had late onset dementia on top of the
Yeah,
Parkinson's, which not
that's
everybody
right.
gets. So I do want to always reiterate every journey is different. What happened to our mothers and still happening to Beth does not mean it'll happen to everyone. Everyone has their own journey, but we talk about it for awareness. And that's one thing I
That's
think
right.
again, we need more awareness for Lewy body dementia. So is there any other
Yeah.
last minute areas that you wish people would learn about?
Sure. And I've already mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again because it's super important, that Lewy body dementia is a form of Parkinsonism. And like you said, not everyone with Parkinson's disease will have cognitive decline or Parkinson's with dementia or Lewy body dementia, but it is under that umbrella. And I think I've already mentioned this too, but one thing, because I'm a caregiver, and currently still a caregiver, that's probably my biggest passion, is caring for the caregiver. And so just being prepared to start grieving and losing the person you love before they're actually gone. Um, I think that there needs to be better programs in place to support caregivers. And a recent article, and I think I actually sent you the article, George, but a recent article I read is it actually talks about how caregiving itself is becoming known as an actual health crisis. Caregiving alone, not the disease associated with it, but caregiving alone is becoming known as a health crisis. So I wish that there was more space for caregivers to talk just like this about our journey, so that there's more programs and sustainable support for the caregiver.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad, but I've done about 100 shows, not my show, but other shows. And the number one thing, the last, how can we give advice? Well, I always say number one, you have to take care of yourself first over
Yeah.
your loved one, or you'll never, but I've destroyed that when I was a caregiver. I didn't follow it.
It's so hard.
And as an advocate, I don't follow it. Like even now, I'm like I've worked since 6 a.m. After we're done, I go back to work. But I just think that the problem is with my mother, she only felt safe when I was around. So I knew that
Yes.
I didn't know she was going to pass. Like again, we were told like a battering ram, she's not going to pass. And so I'm still in shock. But then today,
Yeah.
it's like if we even reach one person, we said earlier, we might change their world forever and realize they're not alone. So
Yes.
if we don't meet today, or we don't become friends, or we don't fight for this cause together, we might have lost so many people that would have smiled.
Along the way.
And even if
Yeah.
they just, like now we're gonna do the tough shift, which is from some tough topics to some fun, but it's hard to even do that because that tough stuff is still something that's so important that I'm grateful that you shared. And everyone
Yeah.
knows Beth is a caregiver because she's calling in from the car with the kids, and I love it. That's why I love virtual. I
I'm
actually
hiding from my kids in the car.
I hope more people do that because I have this boring Zoom, background, but I like the real thing. So hopefully someday we'll work together live too. But can you describe three or list three words that describe who you are?
Oh, I am a daughter of the one true King and a Jesus lover. I am a wife to Dylan for 13 years, but we actually started dating the year my mom was diagnosed. So he's been alongside me with this whole journey the whole time. And so I'm a wife and mom, and I am an optimist. And I love that. I love that about myself. Even on days, some days are harder than others, but for the most part, I really, really, really choose to view life as a glass half full type of thing.
Thank you. I love that. And then this, you've kind of touched on a lot of these, but I want to reiterate, but what is one moment or what one most memorable moment that stands out through most of your work with awareness you could share?
Oh, one moment.
Yeah, it's hard. I know it's like that movie,
Oh.
one moment in time. I'm not a good singer, but we're gonna have to try.
It's probably going to seem silly, but recently I connected two wives whose husbands both have Lewy body dementia, and the four of them have become really amazing friends. And the four of them have gone out and they do little field trips with their husbands, and they've regained so much life back just by having each other. So I think being able to connect people to each other in support and friendship is probably my favorite part of advocacy so far.
I always say there's a lot of darkness, but there's so much more light from the darkness. I lost my best friend, my mother, but come to know individuals like you who inspire me and change my life. And then we share this. You never know how many people will also be changed. So there's a lot of positive, and that's why I always try and touch more on the positive. But you have to tell your story so you know where you've risen out of. It's almost the
That's
word
right. Yeah.
for today.
Yep.
Risen might be an important word for many reasons. So this is an important question. Again, you touched on. I feel like we gave everyone listening, we didn't give her the questions. I like to surprise everyone, but you already answered some of them. So what I do now is my favorite thing to do is bring people from behind the scenes out and obviously not show them, but you're incredible. You're a spokesperson, but I always like to ask who helps you during times of struggle because it's people almost like Wizard of Oz behind the scenes that keep us going.
Oh,
Also,
yeah.
the second part, which you kind of touch on, as you know, I was a caregiver and you are. What tips can you give those listening to for caregivers?
Ooh, yeah, you and I both already kind of touched on it, but I think just as important, if not more important, is prioritizing yourself. And I understand that you and I are both kind of out of that looking back on things, and it may be easier said than done. Um, but I think one thing I wish I would have done was ask for help, and it feels incredibly vulnerable. But the reality is, I think had I just asked for help, I have plenty of people in my circle that love me enough to have helped. For example, find a friend that will just swap houses. They'll come sit in your home with your loved one, play cards, watch a movie, whatever, and you go to their house and take a nap or binge watch a show or whatever. But just, find a friend, ask for help, and get really comfortable
Mhm.
being a bear in advocacy. It's not our nature to make waves and be a little bit cranky, but I found that quicker you become comfortable with being a bear, um, in order to best advocate for your loved one, the better off that they will be.
And thank you. And if this is another one, this one's tough, but is there something you would be or you would have done differently looking back the past 10 years? I told you it'd be
Honestly,
a
on hard days, what I wish I could have gone back in time and told myself to not do it, but I had no other choice. So it's easier said than done, like I said. But and those are on tough days when I think that I'm losing the battle. I in all honesty, from the age of 17 to the age of 34, so much life happens between high school graduation and having babies and careers and college graduation and weddings, that so many of those moments were kind of tainted because I was caregiving. And so my mom was super involved in that, but not in a helpful way. Um, so a lot of times I think to myself, I would tell myself to run. Um, but I'm super grateful. I trust that God has a plan for my life and my mom's life and our story. And the more time I spend in this journey with my mom, the more I can see the whole picture and see that, I think He's chosen our journey to do this, to advocate and to be a voice for others who are just starting the journey. And so I'm incredibly grateful despite the challenges of caregiving.
Thank you. And it shows, I think you're a hero, and you will definitely be for many others when they are aware. But it's, that's why Michael J. Fox is a hero of mine too. He could have led a private life, kind of gone away, and I respect that. You're allowed
Right.
to do that, but he decided not to. And he's out there fighting even today. And, that's what we try to kind of emulate, I hope. Here's a fun
Yeah.
one. If you were asked to write a script to a movie about your life story, what would you call it? And I know you're gonna say,
Oh,
might be run, Beth, run.
oh, that's a good one. Man, you know what? I am not creative on the spot. Oh, that's
Okay,
gonna be tough.
could always get back to me on that.
I don't know. It would probably be something corny, like a life well lived, or I don't know. Sometimes I use hashtags losing Linda, loving Linda. So my mom's name was Linda, is Linda. And so, I've been losing her and loving her at the same time. So maybe losing Linda and loving Linda, something like that.
Thanks, I appreciate it. And as we wrap up, a little one more is, who is your hero or inspiration? I just added that one a week ago. I love it.
Ooh, exciting.
And
Who is
also,
my hero?
everyone,
And
while Beth thinks of the answer, anyone listening, if you have questions you want me to add, please send them my way, and I'll be happy to incorporate those too.
yeah. You know what? Elizabeth Elliot is great. She lost her husband. She went through a great period of grief, and I love her story on redemption and how she used her heartache and the loss of her husband and partner in life, and allowed God to use that as a blessing for others. So
Thank
Elizabeth Elliot.
Everyone, if you have a moment, look up Elizabeth. And also
It's great.
remember, no matter what you do today, it only takes a moment. Go to indianaparkinson.com and you can actually subscribe to the newsletter. It's free. And I have already
Yep.
done it as we spoke. Also go to X, Twitter, and soon 2 YouTube channels, which will be linked. I hope not putting pressure on the Indiana
Yeah.
Parkinson, and also
Awesome.
YouTube. But
Yes.
final question, because I'm worried I'll lose you, is if you could leave the
Yeah.
Parkinson's community today and the Lewy body and dementia park community, every community together, some words of encouragement, what would those be?
Keep listening to the voices that are actually living the disease. That's what matters. Listening to the voices of the people who are living it.
Well, I appreciate everything you do, your time, and my friendship together with you means the world. So cool to be able to, I say cool because it's cool. Sorry, my
Yeah.
lack of professionalism and on
This has been wonderful, George.
that was
Thank you
on
so
purpose.
much.
But we have a little message for you and everyone listening. We love you. We support you. We care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with Beth and the entire Indiana Parkinson's Foundation, will advocate for you. And together, I feel our voices are so much stronger. And I always say I'm just getting started, because when we met a year ago, I was struggling, and then you was so amazing to respond, provide the interview, and you changed my life. And I feel that
Oh,
you'll
thank you,
bring
George.
so many others too. So
The
again,
feeling is absolutely mutual.
yeah, I appreciate it. And again, everyone, thanks for joining us, but you have to share this. This conversation, I think, can end today, even though our talk might for now. It's more to come, but this has to continue for dementia, Lewy body, for Parkinson's
Yes.
until we find a cure. I know Beth and I together won't rest, and I'm going to go right back now to keep fighting for a cure. So thank you, Beth, and thanks everyone again for joining us. This has been another episode of Q&A with Sharon son George. Stay tuned. There's so much more to come, and we still have a lot of work to do to get that care to everyone's doorsteps. So thanks, everyone. Love you.